A 5-year-old boy sits in complete darkness, born blind, never seen a sunrise, a face or a building. Yet his small hands move across paper with terrifying precision, drawing something he should never know. 2 towers, flames crawling up the sides, smoke billowing into a perfect blue sky he's never witnessed. His mother watches, frozen, as he whispers without looking up. I was on the 101st floor. The smoke came fast. I couldn't breathe. And then I fell. He drops the crayon. His vacant eyes stare at nothing, but somehow they see everything. Mom, I remember dying. Before we go deeper into what happened next, subscribe to our channel and tell us in the comments, what city are you watching from? Because what you're about to hear might make you question everything you thought you knew about memory, death, and what comes after. It started 3 years ago, a suburban home in Connecticut, white picket fence, quiet street. The kind of neighborhood where nothing extraordinary ever happens, until it did. Sarah Mitchell was folding laundry when she heard it, a sound that made her blood run cold. Her son, Ethan, then only 2 years old, screaming from his bedroom. Not a tantrum, not a nightmare, a scream of pure visceral terror, the kind that comes from somewhere ancient, primal. She ran, burst through the door, found him standing in his crib, small fists clutching the rails, his sightless eyes wide, and searching in the darkness he'd never escape. Tears streamed down his face. His chest heaved with panic. "Fire!" he gasped. "Fire everywhere! Can't see, can't breathe." Sarah lifted him, held him close, whispered that he was safe, that there was no fire, that it was just a bad dream. But Ethan shook his head violently, his tiny body trembling. "Not a dream, Mommy. I remember the fire." She dismissed it. What else could she do? He was 2, blind since birth due to a rare genetic condition. The doctors said his visual cortex would never develop. He would never see images, never dream in pictures, never understand color or light or shadow. Yet here he was, describing fire. The screams became routine, every few nights, always the same. Fire, smoke, heat, the inability to breathe. Sarah took him to therapists. They suggested anxiety, overstimulation, auditory triggers from television. She removed every device from his room. The screams continued. Then came the drawings. At 3 years old, Ethan began asking for paper and crayons. Sarah thought it was therapeutic, a way for him to express himself. She guided his hand at first, helping him feel the texture of the paper, the waxy smoothness of the crayons. But one afternoon, she left him alone for 10 minutes. When she returned, she found something impossible. On the paper, drawn with uneven but deliberate strokes, were 2 rectangles, tall, parallel, with smaller rectangles inside, windows, scribbled orange and red marks climbing up the sides, black smoke rising to the top of the page. A crude drawing, yes, the work of a toddler's hand, but the intent was unmistakable. Buildings on fire. "What is this, sweetie?" Sarah asked, her voice tight. Ethan's small finger tapped the paper. "Where I was. Before." "Before what?" "Before I was Ethan." The room seemed to tilt. Sarah knelt down, eye level with her son, searching his face for something, anything, that made sense. "What do you mean, before you were Ethan?" He touched the towers again. "I worked here, high up, very high. There were so many desks, and phones ringing, and then the plane." Sarah's hands went numb. "Ethan, how do you know about a plane?" "I saw it. Through the window. It was so loud, Mommy. And then everything was fire." She should have stopped him, should have changed the subject, but she couldn't. "When was this?" Ethan tilted his head, thinking. "When the towers fell. September 11th, 2001. Ethan was born in 2019, 18 years later. Sarah's husband, David, thought she was losing her mind when she told him. "He's 3, Sarah. He probably heard something on the radio at the store. Who knows? Kids repeat things." But Sarah knew. A blind child doesn't invent visual details. He doesn't describe architecture, flames crawling up glass, the specific angle of smoke, not unless he's seen it or remembered it. She started documenting everything, every word Ethan said, every drawing he made. The details accumulated like evidence at a crime scene. He described a large open office, cubicles arranged in rows, a corner window facing north, a water cooler near the elevator, the sound of a woman crying, the smell of burning plastic. "There was a man next to me," Ethan said one evening, unprompted. "He had a red tie. He kept saying, 'We have to go down. We have to go down now.' But I couldn't move. The smoke was too thick." "What was your name?" Sarah asked, barely breathing. Ethan paused, then, clear as daylight, "Michael. Michael Andrews." Sarah's heart stopped. She waited until Ethan was asleep. Then she opened her laptop, hands shaking, and typed the name into a search engine. Michael Andrews, World Trade Center, 9/11. The results loaded. Michael Christopher Andrews, age 34, financial analyst, Cantor Fitzgerald, North Tower, 101st floor, confirmed dead. His photo stared back at her. A man with dark hair, kind eyes, wearing a suit. A man who went to work one Tuesday morning and never came home. A man who, according to her 5-year-old blind son, was him. Sarah clicked through pages, found a memorial site, testimonials from family. His wife described his last phone call, how he said the smoke was unbearable, how he told her he loved her, how the line went dead. Ethan had said the same things, word for word. David still didn't believe. Coincidence. There's information everywhere about 9/11. He could have absorbed it somehow. But Sarah wasn't convinced. She dug deeper, found a documentary featuring interviews with survivors from lower floors. One woman mentioned Cantor Fitzgerald, described the office layout. Ethan's details matched perfectly. The cubicles, the northern exposure, even the water cooler. She showed David. He went pale. "This doesn't mean—" He started but couldn't finish. "Then explain it," Sarah said. "Explain how a blind child knows things he's never been told, things he's never heard, things that aren't in any documentary." David had no answer. Ethan turned 4. The memories intensified. He began speaking about Michael's life, his wife Jennifer, their daughter Claire. He described their apartment in Brooklyn, the view of the bridge, the blue couch in the living room. He remembered birthday parties, Thanksgiving dinners, a trip to Cape Cod. Sarah contacted a reincarnation researcher, Dr. Elena Vasquez, who specialized in cases of children with past life memories. Dr. Vasquez had documented over 200 cases worldwide. She agreed to meet Ethan. The interview took place in Sarah's living room. Dr. Vasquez recorded everything. She asked Ethan simple questions, non-leading, open-ended. "Tell me about the tall building," she said. "I worked on the 101st floor, Ethan replied. "I could see everything from up there. The river, the other buildings. Sometimes helicopters flew by." "What did you do there?" "Numbers. I worked with numbers. Stocks and money." "Do you remember the day of the fire?" Ethan's face darkened. His small hands clenched. "Yes." "Can you tell me what happened?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "The building shook, really hard. Like an earthquake. Things fell off desks. People screamed. I went to the window and I saw the fire. It was coming from below. And the smoke. So much smoke." "What did you do?" "I tried to call Jennifer, my wife, but the phones were jammed. I got through once. I told her I loved her. I told her to tell Claire I loved her too." His voice cracked. "And then the smoke came into our floor. It was so hot. I couldn't breathe. People were breaking windows. Some people jumped." Dr. Vasquez's hands trembled as she took notes. "Did you jump?" "No, I stayed. I thought maybe they'd come, the helicopters, but they didn't. And then I couldn't breathe anymore, and everything went black." "What happened after black?" Ethan looked up, his sightless eyes somehow piercing. "I floated. I could see again. I watched myself on the floor. I wasn't scared anymore. And then I went up." Dr. Vasquez left Sarah's house with over 3 hours of recorded testimony. She promised to investigate, to verify, to either confirm or debunk Ethan's claims with evidence. Sarah didn't sleep that night. Neither did David. They lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to Ethan's soft breathing through the baby monitor. What if it's real? Sarah whispered. Then we're living in a world that doesn't make sense, David replied. 2 weeks later, Dr. Vasquez returned. She carried a folder, thick, filled with documents, photographs, records. She sat across from Sarah and David, her expression unreadable. I need to show you something, she said, but I want you to prepare yourselves, because what I found, it's not explainable by conventional means. She opened the folder. The first document was Michael Andrews' employee ID from Cantor Fitzgerald. His photo, his title, Senior Financial Analyst. His floor, 101. Ethan was correct, Dr. Vasquez said. Michael Andrews worked exactly where he described. But that's not the remarkable part. That information is publicly available. What's remarkable is this. She pulled out a floor plan, architectural schematics of the 101st floor from 2001. I obtained this from the Port Authority archives. This is the exact layout of Cantor Fitzgerald's office space. Look here. She pointed to a corner section. This was Michael Andrews' desk, northeast corner, window facing north, exactly where Ethan said. Sarah's breath caught. That's not public information. No, it's not. I had to file multiple requests to access these records, and there's more. Dr. Vasquez laid out photographs. One showed an office interior, cubicles in rows, a water cooler near an elevator bank. This photo was taken during a corporate event in 1999. Notice the layout. Notice the water cooler placement. It matched Ethan's descriptions perfectly. Here's where it gets impossible, Dr. Vasquez continued. She produced a photocopy of a handwritten note. This is from Jennifer Andrews' personal archive. She donated some of Michael's belongings to the 9/11 Memorial Museum. This note was in his desk drawer at home. He wrote it the night before September 11th. The note read, "Remind me to fix the blue couch cushion. Claire keeps using it as a trampoline." Sarah's hands shook. The blue couch. Ethan mentioned a blue couch. How could he know that? David demanded. How could he possibly know about a private note written the day before 9/11? Dr. Vasquez met his eyes. He shouldn't, but he does, and it doesn't stop there. She pulled out another photograph. A family picture. Michael, Jennifer, and a little girl, Claire, at Cape Cod, beach, sand, smiles. Ethan described a trip to Cape Cod. This trip. Specifically, this trip, from the summer of 2001. Jennifer confirmed they stayed in a yellow cottage near the water. Ethan described that cottage, the color, the proximity to the beach, details Jennifer says she's never publicly shared. The room was silent, except for the ticking of a wall clock. I've interviewed over 200 children claiming past life memories, Dr. Vasquez said quietly. Most are vague, unprovable. But this is different. The level of detail, the emotional accuracy, the verifiable facts that aren't publicly accessible. This is one of the strongest cases I've ever encountered. So you're saying, Sarah couldn't finish, I'm saying that your son, Ethan, possesses memories that belong to Michael Andrews, memories he should have no access to, and I can't explain it. David stood abruptly. There has to be a logical explanation. Maybe Sarah looked this stuff up. Maybe Ethan overheard. I didn't, Sarah snapped. I documented everything before I researched. Every detail Ethan gave came first. The verification came after. Dr. Vasquez nodded. I've reviewed Sarah's documentation. Timestamps on her notes predate any internet searches. The sequence is clear. Ethan provided information first. Confirmation followed. Then how? David's voice cracked. How is this possible? I don't know, Dr. Vasquez admitted. But I'd like to take this further. With your permission, I'd like to arrange a meeting with Jennifer Andrews. Sarah's heart lurched. Michael's widow. You want Ethan to meet her. I want to see if she can confirm details only Michael would know. Personal details, private moments, things that exist nowhere in public record. What if it traumatizes him? Sarah asked. What if it traumatizes her? It might, Dr. Vasquez said, but it might also give her closure, and it might give us answers. 3 days later, Jennifer Andrews sat in Sarah's living room. She was in her late 50s now, grey streaking her dark hair, lines around her eyes. She'd remarried years ago, but kept Michael's last name for Claire. She'd read Dr. Vasquez's preliminary report. She'd agreed to come, but she looked terrified. "I don't know what I'm supposed to believe," Jennifer said, hands wrapped around a coffee mug she hadn't touched. "Michael died 23 years ago. I've made peace with that. But if this boy, if he really—" She trailed off. "You don't have to believe anything," Dr. Vasquez said gently. "Just listen. Ask questions. See what you feel." Ethan entered the room, guided by Sarah's hand. He couldn't see Jennifer, but he stopped, tilted his head. "Someone's here. This is Jennifer," Sarah said softly. She's a friend." Ethan stood very still. Then, quietly, "Jenny?" Jennifer gasped. "What did you say?" "Jenny, that's what I called you. You didn't like Jennifer. You said it sounded too formal." Tears spilled down Jennifer's face. "Oh my God, nobody knew that. Nobody called me that except me," Ethan finished. His small voice carried a strange weight. "I remember, Jenny. I remember everything." Jennifer covered her mouth, sobbing. Dr. Vasquez leaned forward. "Ethan, can you tell Jennifer something only Michael would know? Something private?" Ethan thought for a moment. Then, "You had a scar on your left shoulder from when you fell off your bike as a kid. You hated it, but I used to kiss it. I told you it was my favorite part because it showed you were strong." Jennifer collapsed into sobs. "He did. He said that exact thing. On our honeymoon. Nobody else knew. And Claire," Ethan continued, "she was scared of thunderstorms. I used to sit with her and make up stories about the thunder being a giant bowling in the sky. It made her laugh." "Stop," Jennifer choked out. "Please stop." But Ethan kept going, his voice distant, as if he were pulling memories from deep water. "The last morning, September 11th, I made you coffee. I burned the toast. You laughed. You kissed me and said, 'Good thing you're better with numbers than breakfast,' and I left. I walked out the door. I didn't know I'd never come back." Jennifer was shaking. "How? How do you know this?" Ethan turned toward her voice, his blind eyes wet. "Because I was there, Jenny. I was Michael, and I'm so sorry I left you." The room was thick with grief and impossibility. Jennifer reached out, pulled Ethan into her arms, and held him like he was a ghost made flesh. Which in a way he was. Dr. Vasquez documented everything. The meeting lasted 2 hours. Jennifer asked questions only a widow could ask. Ethan answered with details only a husband could know. Their first apartment, their wedding song, the miscarriage before Claire, the argument they'd had the week before 9/11 about Michael working too much, the apology he'd whispered in the dark. All of it accurate, all of it verifiable through Jennifer's private journals and memories. When Jennifer finally left, she was both shattered and strangely at peace. "I don't understand it," she told Dr. Vasquez at the door. "But that's him, somehow, somewhere inside that little boy. That's Michael." After she was gone, Sarah turned to Dr. Vasquez. "What do we do now?" "Now," Dr. Vasquez said, "we document this, carefully, because the world needs to know." But that night, something changed. Ethan woke at 3 a.m., screaming. Sarah ran to his room. He was sitting up, hands clutching his head. "It's not just the towers, Mommy, there's more. There's so much more." "What do you mean, baby? More what?" "More memories, more lives. They're all here, all inside me." Sarah's blood went cold. "Other lives?" Ethan nodded, tears streaming. "Before Michael, and before that, and before that, I remember dying. Over and over." "Ethan, you're scaring me." "I'm scaring myself, Mommy, because I don't just remember dying. I remember what I saw after, and it's not what anyone thinks." Dr. Vasquez returned the next morning with 2 colleagues. Dr. Ian Pembroke, a psychiatrist specializing in dissociative disorders, and Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a neuroscientist researching consciousness and memory formation. They set up equipment in Sarah's living room. Cameras, audio recorders, biometric sensors to track Ethan's heart rate, skin conductivity, brainwave patterns. "We need to approach this scientifically," Dr. Pembroke said. If Ethan is experiencing genuine past life recall, there should be measurable physiological responses when he accesses these memories. If it's confabulation or fantasy, the patterns will be different. Ethan sat in his usual chair, small and still, his unseeing eyes directed toward the ceiling. He seemed older somehow, burdened, as if the weight of other lives was pressing down on his 5-year-old frame. "Ethan," Dr. Vasquez said gently, "last night you said you remember other lives before Michael. Can you tell us about them?" Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I was a woman, before Michael. Her name was Ruth." The team exchanged glances. Dr. Tanaka monitored the sensors. Ethan's heart rate had spiked, his skin conductivity showed elevated stress, but his breathing remained controlled, focused. "Tell us about Ruth," Dr. Vasquez prompted. "She lived in Poland, a long time ago, during the war." "The second one." Sarah's hands gripped the armrest of her chair. "World War II?" Ethan nodded. "She was hiding, in someone's attic, with her little brother. They stayed very quiet during the day. At night, the woman who hid them would bring food, bread, sometimes soup. Do you remember Ruth's last name?" "Levin, Ruth Levin. She was 12 years old when the soldiers came." Dr. Vasquez scribbled notes frantically. "What happened when the soldiers came?" Ethan's face contorted. "They found us. Someone told them, a neighbor. They took us to the train. There were so many people, packed so tight you couldn't breathe. It was hot. People were crying. My brother held my hand the whole way." "Where did the train go?" Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. "To the camp, Auschwitz." The room went deathly silent. "Ruth died there," Ethan continued, "in the gas chamber. She was 13. She held her brother's hand, even at the end. And then there was nothing. And then I was someone else." Tears streamed down Sarah's face. David stood frozen in the doorway, unable to speak. Dr. Pembroke leaned forward. "Ethan, do you remember what came between Ruth and Michael?" "Yes, I was Thomas. I lived in California. I died in a car accident in 1987. I was 19. And before Ruth, Margaret. I was a nurse in London during the First World War. I died from the flu, 1918. And before that," Ethan's face went distant. "Before that, I don't remember a name. But I remember cold, snow, mountains. I was hunting, I fell, I died alone in the snow." Dr. Tanaka stared at her monitors. "His vitals are consistent with genuine memory recall, elevated heart rate during traumatic moments, but no signs of fabrication or performance. This is unprecedented." "How far back do your memories go?" Dr. Vasquez asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan tilted his head, as if listening to something distant. "Very far. I remember being a child in a village made of mud. I remember dying from sickness. I remember being old. I remember being young. I remember so many lives, so many deaths." "Why?" Sarah asked, her voice breaking. "Why do you remember when no one else does?" "I don't know," Ethan said. "But I think maybe everyone remembers. They just don't know they do." Over the following weeks, Dr. Vasquez's team worked to verify Ethan's claims. They started with Ruth Levin. Historical records from Poland, Holocaust archives, Yad Vashem databases. They found her. Ruth Levin, born 1930, Krakow, Poland, deported to Auschwitz in 1943, with her younger brother Isaac, both listed among the dead. Ruth's age at death, 13. The details Ethan provided, the attic, the betrayal by a neighbor, the train, the camp, all matched survivor testimonies and historical documentation. They moved to Thomas, DMV records from California, accident reports from 1987. They found him too. Thomas Edward Grant, age 19, died in a single-car accident on Highway 101, June 1987. Cause, lost control on a wet road. Vehicle went over an embankment. Ethan had described the rain, the headlights reflecting off the slick pavement. The moment the car started to slide, the terror as it went over the edge, all accurate. Margaret proved harder. Records from 1918 were incomplete, but they found a Margaret Holloway. Nurse, London, died October 1918 during the Spanish flu pandemic. One by one, the lives Ethan described checked out. Not all of them. Some lacked sufficient historical record, but enough. Far more than chance could account for. This changes everything, Dr. Tanaka said during a team meeting. If consciousness persists beyond death, if memory can transfer from one life to another, then our entire understanding of neuroscience, of identity, of reality itself, it's all wrong. Or it's all much bigger than we thought, Dr. Vasquez countered. Maybe consciousness isn't generated by the brain. Maybe the brain is just a receiver, and Ethan's receiver is picking up signals from the past. But why him, Dr. Pembroke asked. Why is he the one who remembers? No one had an answer. Sarah began noticing changes in Ethan. He seemed to carry himself differently, more carefully, as if aware of the fragility of life, in a way no child should be. He stopped playing like other kids, stopped laughing as much. When other children complained about trivial things, he would simply listen, silent and ancient. One afternoon, Sarah found him sitting by the window, hands folded in his lap. "What are you thinking about, sweetheart?" "All the people I used to be," he said quietly. "All the people they loved, all the people who loved them. They're all still there, somewhere, waiting. Waiting for what? To be remembered." That night, Ethan had another episode, but this one was different. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He simply walked into his parents' bedroom at 2 a.m., stood at the foot of their bed, and said in a voice that wasn't quite his own, "They're calling me." Sarah jolted awake. "Who's calling you, baby?" "The others, the ones who remember." "I'm not the only one." David sat up, turning on the lamp. "Ethan, what are you talking about?" Ethan's blind eyes seemed to focus on something far beyond the room. "There are others like me, all over the world. Children who remember. Adults who remember but pretend they don't. We're all connected. We're all part of something bigger. Connected how? I don't know yet, but I can feel them, like voices in the distance, and they're getting louder." Sarah called Dr. Vasquez immediately. By morning, the entire research team was back, setting up for another session. But this time they brought something new, a global database of documented reincarnation cases from the past 50 years. If what Ethan says is true, Dr. Vasquez explained, if there are others with similar memories, there should be patterns, geographic clusters, temporal overlaps, shared characteristics. They worked for hours, cross-referencing data, and slowly, impossibly, a pattern emerged. Children born within specific time windows after major tragedies showed elevated rates of past life recall, post-9/11, post-2004 tsunami, post-Holocaust, as if trauma left such a deep imprint on consciousness that it echoed forward through time. But there was something else, something that made Dr. Tanaka's hands shake as she highlighted the data. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a graph. "Cases of past life memory recall have been increasing exponentially over the past 20 years. In the 1970s, we documented maybe 50 credible cases worldwide. In the 1990s, 200. In the last decade, over 3,000. And the rate is accelerating." "What does that mean?" Sarah asked. "I don't know," Dr. Tanaka admitted. "But it's as if the barrier between lives is thinning, as if more souls are remembering, waking up." "To what?" David demanded. "What are they waking up to?" Ethan, who had been silent throughout, finally spoke. "To the truth about what happens when we die, about what we really are." "And what are we?" Dr. Vasquez asked. Ethan turned toward her voice. "Eternal. We've always been here. We've always been alive. Death is just a doorway. We walk through it, and then we walk through another one, again and again, forever. But why don't most people remember? Because remembering is hard. It hurts. Imagine carrying the weight of 100 lifetimes, 1,000. The grief, the loss, the love that never dies, but gets left behind every time. Most souls choose to forget. It's easier that way. But you didn't forget. No, I don't know why. Maybe I'm supposed to remember. Maybe I'm supposed to tell people." "I tell them what?" Ethan's face grew solemn. That death isn't the end, that the people we lose, they're not gone. They're just on the other side of the door. And someday we'll walk through it too, and we'll see them again. Silence filled the room. Not the silence of disbelief, but of something deeper, recognition. As if on some level they all knew he was right. Dr. Pembroke cleared his throat. Ethan, you mentioned that after you died, after Michael died, you saw something. You said you went up. Can you describe what you saw? Ethan nodded slowly. When the smoke took me, when I couldn't breathe anymore, there was a moment of nothing, complete black, but it didn't last. Suddenly, I could see again, not with eyes, with something else. I was above my body. I could see myself lying there on the floor. I wasn't scared. I felt light, free. What happened next? I started moving, not walking, just moving, through the walls, through the building. I could see everyone, the people still alive, trying to get out, the people who were already gone, like me. Some of them looked confused, others looked peaceful, and then I saw the light. What light? It's hard to explain. It wasn't bright in a way that hurts. It was bright in a way that feels like home, like love, like everything good you've ever felt, all at once, and I moved toward it. Did you reach it? Almost. But then I stopped, because I saw them. Saw who? Everyone I'd ever been, all my past lives, they were standing there waiting for me. Ruth, Thomas, Margaret, all of them. And they were smiling, like they'd been expecting me. Dr. Vasquez leaned forward, breathless. What did they say? They said, welcome back. They said, it's not time yet, you have to go again. And I said, I'm tired. I don't want to forget again. But they said, you won't. Not this time. This time, you'll remember. And you'll help others remember too. And then the light pulled me in and I was gone. I don't know how long I was there. Time didn't work the same way. It felt like forever and no time at all. And then I was here, being born, crying, feeling heavy again, trapped in a body that couldn't see. Did you choose to be born blind? Ethan paused. I think so. I think I needed to see without eyes, so I could see the things that matter. The weight of his words settled over the room like snow. Over the next several days, Dr. Vasquez's team conducted more interviews. They brought in other documented cases of reincarnation, adults and children from around the world who claimed past life memories. Some traveled to Connecticut to meet Ethan. Others participated via video call. The meetings were extraordinary. A 7-year-old girl from India who remembered being a soldier killed in World War I. A 40-year-old man from Brazil who recalled dying in a mining accident in 1952. A teenage boy from Japan who described in perfect detail a life as a fisherman who drowned in the 1960s. When they spoke with Ethan, something remarkable happened. They recognized each other, not physically. Most had never met, but on some deeper level, they knew each other, as if they were part of the same soul family, the same ancient web of consciousness. We've been here before, the girl from India said during one session. All of us. We've done this dance so many times. Why? Sarah asked. Why do we keep coming back? To learn, the man from Brazil answered. To grow, to love. Each life teaches us something, and eventually we'll learn enough to stay in the light. Is that heaven? David asked. I don't think it has a name, Ethan said, but it's where we come from, and it's where we return, always. The research team compiled their findings into a report, 600 pages, testimony from over 40 individuals claiming verifiable past life memories, statistical analysis showing the increasing rate of recall, neurological data suggesting that consciousness operates independently of the brain. Dr. Vasquez prepared to publish. But the night before submission, Ethan had the worst episode yet. He woke screaming, not words, just raw, primal terror. Sarah ran to his room, found him convulsing, his small body rigid, hands clawing at the air. Ethan! Baby, what's wrong? His voice, when it came, was layered, multiple tones, as if a dozen people were speaking through him at once. They're closing the door. They're trying to close the door. Who? Who's closing what door? The ones who don't want us to remember. the ones who need us to forget. They're coming. They're trying to stop us. Stop what? Ethan's body went limp. His eyes opened, sightless, but somehow seeing. The awakening. We're waking up too fast. Too many of us. And they're scared. Who is they? But before he could answer, Ethan collapsed. Unconscious, breathing but unresponsive. The ambulance arrived within minutes. Paramedics checked his vitals. Everything was normal. No seizure activity, no signs of distress. He was simply asleep. At the hospital, doctors ran every test imaginable. Brain scans, blood work, EEG. Everything came back normal, textbook healthy. "There's nothing physically wrong with him," the attending physician said. "Whatever happened, it wasn't medical." "Then what was it?" Sarah demanded. The doctor had no answer. Ethan woke 6 hours later, calm and quiet. He asked for water, drank it slowly, then looked at his mother and said, "We don't have much time." "Time for what?" "To tell the truth, before they make everyone forget again." That night, Dr. Vasquez made the decision. She submitted the report, sent it to every major scientific journal, every news outlet, every platform that would listen. The world needed to know. But as the sun set on that evening, as the report went live across the internet, something strange began to happen. Other children started waking up all over the world, suddenly remembering, suddenly speaking about lives they'd never lived, deaths they'd never experienced. The awakening had begun, and somewhere in the space between lives, something ancient and powerful watched and decided it was time to act. The first reports came from Australia. A 6-year-old boy in Sydney woke up screaming about drowning on a ship called the Titanic. He described the freezing water, the screams, the impossible tilt of the deck. His parents dismissed it as a nightmare until he gave them a name. Charles Everett, third-class passenger, died April 15, 1912. They looked it up. Charles Everett existed, died exactly as the boy described. Within 24 hours, similar cases emerged across 6 continents. A girl in Germany remembering dying in the firebombing of Dresden. A boy in Kenya recalling a life as a Maasai warrior killed in a colonial conflict. A teenager in Peru suddenly fluent in a dialect of Quechua no longer spoken, describing an Incan village destroyed centuries ago. The numbers climbed exponentially, 50 cases, then 200, then 1,000. Social media erupted. Parents posting videos of their children speaking in languages they'd never learned, describing places they'd never been, naming people long dead. The phenomenon wasn't limited to children. Adults began experiencing spontaneous recall. A woman in Toronto suddenly remembered being a nurse in the Vietnam War, despite being born in 1995. A man in South Africa started speaking fluent Zulu and described being a tribal elder who died in the 1800s. A college student in California had a breakdown during class, sobbing about dying at Hiroshima. The global infrastructure couldn't handle it. Hospitals overflowed with people experiencing vivid, traumatic flashbacks of deaths they'd never experienced. Therapists were booked solid for months. Governments issued statements calling it mass hysteria, shared psychosis, internet-induced delusion. But the evidence kept mounting. Names, dates, details, all verifiable, all accurate. Dr. Vasquez's report went viral. 10 million downloads in the first week. Media outlets fought for interviews. Ethan's story became the center of a global conversation about consciousness, death, and the nature of reality itself. But not everyone wanted the conversation to happen. 3 days after the report's release, Dr. Vasquez received a visitor, a woman in a dark suit. No identification, no appointment. She simply appeared in the university office and sat down across from Dr. Vasquez's desk. "You need to retract your findings," the woman said. Her voice was calm, clinical, devoid of emotion. "Who are you?" Dr. Vasquez demanded. "Someone who understands what you don't. This information is destabilizing. Society isn't ready." "Isn't ready for the truth?" isn't ready for the chaos. Religion, economics, legal systems, everything is built on the assumption that we live once and then we're done. If people believe otherwise, the entire structure collapses. That's not my problem. The woman leaned forward. It will be. We've contained these incidents before. The Renaissance, the 1960s. Every time humanity gets close to remembering, we intervene. We suppress. We discredit. And life continues. We? The woman smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Let's just say there are interests that benefit from humanity's forgetfulness, and those interests have resources you can't imagine. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you. Retract the report. Discredit the boy. Claim it was a hoax, and this all goes away quietly. And if I don't, the woman stood, then you'll learn firsthand what happens to people who try to open doors that are meant to stay closed. She left without another word. Dr. Vasquez called Sarah immediately. You need to protect Ethan. Something's coming. What do you mean? I think there are people, organizations, who don't want this information public, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to stop it. And that night, Sarah and David packed. They drove Ethan to David's sister's house 3 states away. No phones, no internet, complete isolation. But even there, Ethan couldn't escape what was happening. He sat in the guest bedroom, hands folded, listening to the voices that only he could hear. They're scared, Mommy, the ones trying to stop us. They're scared because they know what happens if everyone remembers. What happens? Freedom. If people remember that death isn't the end, they stop being afraid. And if they stop being afraid, they can't be controlled. Fear is the chain. Memory is the key. Sarah held him close. What do? We keep telling the truth, even if they try to stop us, especially if they try to stop us. Back in Connecticut, strange things began happening. Dr. Vasquez's office was broken into, files stolen, hard drives wiped. Her university email was hacked, flooded with messages claiming the research was fraudulent. Anonymous accounts flooded social media, calling her a charlatan, a liar, a danger to public health. Dr. Tanaka received a visit from federal agents claiming her research violated ethical protocols. Dr. Pembroke's medical license was suddenly under review for unspecified violations. The campaign was coordinated, systematic, designed to destroy credibility and bury the story. But they underestimated one thing: the children themselves. All over the world, the newly awakened children began connecting, not through technology, most were too young, but through something else: dreams, shared visions, a collective consciousness that transcended physical boundaries. They spoke in their sleep, calling to each other across oceans and continents. They drew the same symbols without ever meeting. They sang songs in languages dead for millennia, and they all said the same thing: we remember, and we will not forget again. The movement grew. Parents formed support groups. Online communities exploded. Millions of people sharing experiences, comparing notes, verifying claims. The data was overwhelming, undeniable. Mainstream scientists began taking notice. Universities launched formal studies. Neurologists, psychologists, physicists, all drawn to the phenomenon. Some remained skeptical, but many couldn't ignore the evidence. Then came the breakthrough. Dr. Tanaka, working with a team at MIT, developed a brain imaging technique that could visualize memory formation in real time. When they scanned Ethan during a past life recall episode, they found something extraordinary. His brain wasn't generating the memories, it was receiving them. Patterns of neural activity originated from outside the brain, from the quantum field, the fabric of space-time itself, as if memory wasn't stored in neurons but in the universe. And the brain was simply an antenna, tuning in to specific frequencies. This changes everything, Dr. Tanaka said during the press conference unveiling the findings. If memory exists independently of the brain, if consciousness is non-local, then we are not our bodies. We are something far greater, something eternal. The implications were staggering, but the resistance intensified. A week after the press conference, Dr. Tanaka's lab was destroyed in a fire. officially ruled accidental. But the sprinkler system had been disabled. Security footage mysteriously corrupted. Dr. Vasquez received death threats, had to hire private security. Sarah and David kept Ethan hidden, moving every few days, paranoid and exhausted. And then, on a cold morning in March, Ethan said, "It's time." "Time for what?" Sarah asked. "To speak. To all of them. Everyone who's listening." "Ethan, it's too dangerous. It's more dangerous not to. They're trying to close the door, Mommy. But we can prop it open. If enough people remember, they can't stop us. The truth becomes unstoppable." Dr. Vasquez arranged a live broadcast. Every major platform agreed to carry it. The event was promoted as "The Boy Who Remembers, a Global Message." Estimated viewership 2 billion people. The day of the broadcast, security was intense. Multiple locations were considered and rejected. Finally, they settled on a neutral venue, an auditorium rented under a false name, with private security and media blackout until airtime. Ethan sat in a simple chair on an empty stage. A single spotlight. No theatrics. Just a blind 5-year-old boy and a microphone. When the cameras went live, he spoke. "My name is Ethan. I'm 5 years old. I can't see, but I remember things I shouldn't. I remember dying, many times, in many lives, and I remember what comes after." 2 billion people listened. "I'm not special. I'm not chosen. I'm just awake. And there are thousands of us now, all over the world, children and adults waking up to the truth that's always been there, hidden inside us." He paused. Took a breath. "They're trying to make us forget, the people who benefit from our fear. The systems built on the lie that this life is all we have. They want us to stay asleep, because a sleeping world is an obedient world. But we're waking up. And once you remember, you can't unremember. Once you know that death is just a door, once you understand that the people you love never really leave, once you realize that you are eternal, everything changes. You stop being afraid. You stop letting others control you with threats of endings that don't exist. You start living like the infinite being you truly are." His voice, small but steady, filled the silence of millions of homes. "I remember Michael. I remember Ruth. I remember Thomas and Margaret and so many others. I remember their love, their pain, their courage, and I'm honored to carry their memories, because they're proof that we don't end. We continue forever." And to everyone watching who's lost someone, your mother, your father, your child, your friend, I want you to know they're not gone. They're on the other side of the door, waiting. And when your time comes, you'll see them again, I promise. Tears streamed down faces across the globe. Not tears of sadness, tears of recognition, of relief, of hope. So don't be afraid of death, of life, of the unknown, because you've done this before. We all have, and we'll do it again and again until we learn what we came here to learn. Remember, please remember who you are, what you are, and when you do, tell others, wake them up gently, because the awakening is happening, and nothing can stop it now. He sat back. The broadcast ended. Within an hour, the internet exploded. Billions of views, millions of shares. The hashtag #WeRemember trended globally, and something shifted. Not dramatically, not all at once, but quietly, deeply, irreversibly. People started talking about death differently, grieving differently, living differently. The old systems of control built on fear and finality began to crumble. And Ethan, blind but seeing more clearly than anyone, simply smiled, because he knew the door was open, and humanity was finally walking through. Epilogue. 6 months later, Dr. Vasquez published a follow-up study. Over 10,000 documented cases of verified past life recall. The United Nations formed a task force to investigate the phenomenon. Religious institutions worldwide struggled to reconcile ancient teachings with emerging evidence. Sarah and David settled back into a quieter life. Ethan returned to school, a special program for children with extraordinary abilities. He made friends, other children who remembered. They played together, but their play was different, deeper, as if they understood something most adults still couldn't grasp. Jennifer Andrews visited regularly. She and Ethan, Michael, had long conversations about life, death, love that transcends time. "Do you think you'll remember me?" Jennifer asked during one visit. "In your next life?" Ethan smiled. "I think I'll always remember you, Jenny. Some love is too big to forget." Late one evening, as Sarah tucked Ethan into bed, he said, "Thank you, Mommy." "For what, sweetheart?" "For believing me, for not thinking I was crazy, for helping me remember." "You helped me remember too," Sarah whispered, "that life is bigger than we think, that love never ends, that we're all just traveling together, over and over, finding each other again." "Do you think we've known each other before?" Ethan asked. Sarah kissed his forehead. "I think we've known each other forever." As Ethan drifted to sleep, his breathing slow and peaceful, Sarah stood at the window looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, in the vast expanse of eternity, souls were moving, living, dying, being reborn. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid, because she knew the truth. Death wasn't the end, it was just the next beginning, and the door would always be open, always.